Today we will understand about the keyword which is called as what? Throws. The only difference between yesterday's topic and today's topic is, right, you are just using an additional letter which is yes. Okay? It's a plural form of throw, right? Throws keyword. So let us understand what is the usage of throws keyword. So before proceeding into understanding this, I will give you one scenario. The scenario is like I have a class. Let me take the class test. So my test class has a main method. Okay. For the simplicity, I am using the shortcut public static void main. So this is my main method. The moment I start using, I want to generate I want to generate a checked exception. Okay. Let me use thread.sleep. So I want the main thread to go into the sleeping state for 5 seconds. Right. After this, I just want to print something like system.out.println. Right. So if I just compile this code, do you think that compilation will be successful in this case? The compilation will not be successful because this particular code is there, right? This thread.sleep is going to generate a checked exception. I mean, there is a checked exception. The compiler wants the developer to handle this exception. So even though the main thread will just go into the sleeping state, some other thread they might interrupt this main thread. They might interrupt this main thread because the main thread is committed to sleep for 5 seconds. Okay, after 3 seconds, there are high chances that some thread may wake up this thread. So you will understand this concept of the exceptional, when the multi-threading concept. Okay, when the main thread is made to sleep for 5 seconds, it should not be disturbed, right? Since there are high chances that it could be disturbed, okay, the exception can be generated. Okay, you need to handle that exception. So this is called as what? This is called as one of the checked exceptions. Right? Checked exception. If you want to understand this in the code, let me say thread.sleep for 5000 milliseconds. After making the main thread to sleep for 5 seconds, okay, now I want to execute the next line number 12, which is hello. Okay, I cannot run this because it is giving me a compilation error. If you just hover the mouse on top of this, on the 10th line, it says unhandled exception type. Okay, so there are high chances that the main thread may get interrupted by some other thread. So that exception needs to be handled. It is asking you to handle this exception, right? So how we are going to handle this? Okay, we can handle this in how many ways as per our understanding. Okay, we can handle this in how many ways? So this is our code. Okay, we can handle this in 2 ways. So the actual way is by using try catch blocks. Yes, sir. Hello.
Yes, sir.
First way is handling by using try catch block. We know this try catch block already. Try catch block. How we can handle this by using try catch block? Very simple. Since this is the risky code, right? Since this is risky code, you just place the try block. I mean, you just create a try block and place the risky code inside the try block, right? And you need to catch it. Okay, there are high chances that exception can occur. So you are going to catch it with a specific exception, which is what? Interrupted exception. Interrupted exception, right? So in the catch block, you have some meaningful statement. Okay, main thread is interrupted, but still the program continues. Still there won't be any abnormal termination. Okay, can I say that this is one of the ways to handle this? First way, right? We know this already, right? I agree that this is one of the ways to handle this. Yes, no? First possible way.
Yes, sir.
Second possible way is you can use the throws keyword to handle this checked exception. You can use the throws keyword to handle this checked exception. Instead of using try catch block, instead of depending upon the try catch block, I can simply use what? I can simply use, let me remove this. Let me remove all this thing. Okay. I can simply use the throws keyword. So what does it really means is my method is risky enough to throw an exception. What kind of exception it is going to throw? We know that it is going to throw interrupted exception. So my method has high chances to throw the interrupted exception. So I want to throw that. I want to use the throws keyword to throw that. Okay, I will be throwing it to the moment you start doing this. Literally, who is calling the main? Who is calling the main method in this case? Who is calling the main method? Main thread, no? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Main thread. Who is sending the main thread? JVM, right? Okay, the moment you start throwing the exception, now JVM is responsible to handle the generated exception. Now JVM is responsible to handle it. So this I can say this is the second way to handle an exception. Throws keyword is the second way to handle an exception. But there is one problem here. There is one problem here. In both the cases, okay, in both the cases, if you take try and catch block, you were completely, suppressing the exception. You are completely dealing with the exception. But in this case, in the case number 2, you are not dealing with the exception. You are not ready to deal with the exception because you don't know how to deal with it. You are just sending it to the caller method. You are asking the caller method saying that I don't know how to deal with this exception. Could you please deal with that? But unfortunately, our caller method is what? Our caller method is JVM itself. In this case, our caller method is what? JVM itself. Whenever the exception is thrown to the JVM directly, it is always what? Abnormal termination. There are some use cases we will understand that. In this case, it is an abnormal termination. Okay. Can you confirm one thing? Can you confirm one thing here? We are just trying to convince the compiler for the compilation. Do you agree with that? Because of the throws keyword, compiler is very much convinced here, right? Right? Compiler is not
Yes, sir.
scolding. It is very much confused. If you remove this, compiler is asking you to handle this exception. Okay. To convince a compiler, you can either use try catch block, or else if this method is not capable enough to handle this, okay, you are saying, okay, you are saying to throw the exception. You are just delegating the exception to the caller method. In this case, the caller method is JVM itself. Unfortunately, it's JVM in our example. That's why it is an abnormal termination. But you have convinced the compiler. The program will be compiled successfully. Yes, sir. Do you agree with that? First case study.
Yes, sir.
I run this code. Now see the output. One minute, please. Are you seeing anything? Yeah, you are seeing what? Wait. It is waiting for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now JVM is handling. JVM is handling. Now here you are not getting any exception. That's why it is getting executed. In this case, it is waiting for 5 seconds. It is waiting for 5 seconds. Okay. After waiting for 5 seconds, the code is very clear and concise. The code is very clear and concise. It is not, the main thread is not getting interrupted. Just in case the main thread is getting interrupted. Okay, how I can simulate that? Let me take another example. Let me take print writer example. Print writer PW equal to new print writer. Okay, it is expecting a file now. This is expecting. Let me remove this. It is expecting a file. Okay, it is asking me to give the path. Let me say C drive. Okay, something like new path, new dot, new slash. I'm giving a random path here. Semicolon new slash. Okay. So do you see it is asking us to fix the checked exception? So there is no handling code here, right? There is no handling code here. It is asking you to fix the, give the handling code because this code is powerful enough to generate an exception, right? Either we can handle this by using try catch block or you can use throws keyword. Let us take throws declaration. Okay, throws file not found exception. Now, do you think that compiler is convinced or not? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Now, compiler is convinced now. Now, here the problem is if I just run this code. Okay, do you see an exception here? This is not why it is not why it is giving an exception, even though you are delegating this exception to the caller method. What is the caller method of main method? JVM, right? You are telling that whenever this method generates an exception, the caller method is going to handle that. But the caller method here is what? JVM itself, right? JVM itself. Whenever the control is going to the JVM, it is abnormal termination only. Why it is abnormal termination? Because it is not able to find this path. I have given a random path. It is not even there. Are you getting this? If I am not using this, instead of using this, if I just trying to use the try catch block, okay, try catch block exception. Let us keep the exception very specific. File not found exception. File not found exception. Okay, system.out.println. Okay. Run this code. Do you see any abnormal termination here? Because the exception that is generating is getting suppressed by the catch block. It is the exception is getting handled in the current main method itself. There is no abnormal termination. Okay, but in case if you are trying to use the throws keyword, okay, unfortunately our method, we are writing the code in the main method itself. The moment you start with the throws keyword, right? Whenever the exception is occurring, now you have convinced the compiler successfully. Now compiler is very much satisfied that Balaji is able to handle the exception gracefully by using the throws keyword. But compiler does not know that the exception is going to delegated to the JVM. It does not know. It knows only one thing. Somehow this code is protected because the exception that is going to get generated will be delegated by using the throws keyword. But the moment I start hitting the run button, compilation is successful, but at the run time, the exception is generated. Why? Because this line number, this path is not there. This path is not there, right? So the exception will be thrown to the caller method. What is a caller method? In this case, JVM. Okay, whenever the control goes to JVM, it is abnormal termination only. Now you could ask me a question, then what's the point of using throws keyword? Now we will understand. Now we will get to know that the purpose of using throws keyword, right? For now, I can conclude three things. By using the throw keyword, I can conclude three things. Throws keyword. The first point, the first very important point is the purpose of throws keyword is I can simply say that we can use to delegate the responsibility of exception handling to the caller. Responsibility of exceptional handling to the caller method. First thing. Okay. Second case is you can use this throws keyword only for the checked exception. You know what I mean? You can use throws keyword only for the checked exception. Sir, why it is like that? If you go back and see system.out.println, okay, 10 by 0. Now, do you think that compiler is complaining here? Hello?
No, sir.
When the compiler is not, complaining, what does it really mean? This is a risky code which is going to generate an exception at the runtime, right? So it will not make any sense, right? Even if I handle this by using throws runtime exception or not, the output is going to be same, right? Hello? So we are using the throws keyword only to convince the compiler. It is required only for the checked exception, and for an unchecked exception there is no use, because compiler is very happy with our code. It is not able to identify whether this code is going to generate an exception or not. So no use of using it for unchecked exceptions like runtime exception. Right? What is the second point? It is required only for checked exception, and for unchecked exceptions is not required. Okay. Third point. What is the third important point? You know this. Third point is very simple. Do you think that it is used, as per our understanding till now, the examples that we have seen so far, it is used only to convince the compiler? Do you agree with this? Do you
Yes, sir.
think that it is going to prevent? Okay, and its usage does not prevent, as usage is not preventing, no? Preventing from abnormal definition, right? Its usage is not preventing. Preventing from abnormal termination. So these 3 points, if you remember, there are 3 important points that you can give in the interview room whenever the question is like, what is the use of throws keyword? You will understand this better with one more example. This example is not making any sense, right? So we will take another example. Let me say public static. I want to take a method like void study. Let me take void work. I have a simple static method. The name of the method is work. Let me take another static method. The name of this method is artwork. I have 2 methods. Totally, I have 3 methods. One is main method, work method, and work hard method. I want to call the work method from main method. From work method, I want to call odd work method. Okay, and in the odd work method, I'm going to keep a line, a risky code which is potential enough to generate an exception. Red dot here. Right? So now tell me, if I just run this code, don't you think that I will get the compile time error? Because in the Eclipse editor, we cannot see the compile time error directly. So I'm just trying to run it forcefully. When I do the forceful run, okay, it is saying, right, error section required project, no issues, proceed forcefully. It says unresolved compilation problem, unhandled exception type, interrupted exception. Why interrupted exception? Okay, so the execution starts from the main method. Main method is what? Calling another method which is work method. The control is transferred to work method, and work method is calling another method which is odd work method. Inside the odd work method, you have a risky code, and this is potential enough to generate an exception which is an checked exception. You want to handle this. Okay. How we can handle this? Either we can use try catch block, but I do not. I'm not interested with try catch block. Instead of that, I want to use throws keyword. Okay. Now you tell me, have we convinced the compiler for this method? Hello? Are we able to?
Yes, sir.
But we are able to convince the compiler for only for this method. You are delegating the responsibility to, okay, you are throwing the exception to what? The caller method. When you use throws keyword next to a specific method, if that method is generating an exception, which method has called is the caller method of odd work. Work is the caller method of odd work. Work method is the caller method of odd work. Right? So this work method is responsible to handle the exception. What are the 2 ways to handle the exception? Either by using try catch block. I'm not interested in that. I just want to use the throws keyword. Right? Let me use the throws keyword. Now are we able to convince a compiler for this method? Right? But there is a problem in the
Yes,
word.
sir.
But here there is a problem.
Definitely.
But because you are throwing this method to the call, you are throwing the exception to the caller method, saying that I don't know how to handle this exception. My caller method will take care. But the caller method is it taking care of handling this exception? No, right? It is not taking care of handling this exception. Okay? So how to convince the compiler now? Either you can use try catch block. I'm not interested in that, or else I can use what throws exception. Throws interrupted exception. Now you tell me, can we conclude that the movement when the exception is thrown to the JVM, is it abnormal termination or not?
Yes, sir.
Definitely.
But do you think that this code is going to generate an exception? No, right? No, no exception, because we are assuming that thread.sleep will wait for 5 seconds only if the exception is occurring. Only if the exception is occurring, it is an abnormal termination. If the exception is not occurring, normal termination only, no? Yes, no?
Yes.
Don't get confused with this. You run this, okay? The main thread will wait for 5 seconds and you don't see anything there. Basically, you don't see anything there. So understand this better. Let me use the print writer. Print writer PW equal to new print writer. Okay, let me use the real path here. We take a real path. Let us define the real path. Huh? What is the name of this file? Not properties file. Okay. Okay. Now let me remove this. Let me remove this. Let me remove this. So this line is creating an unchecked exception, isn't it? Checked exception. Checked exception. Right? We need to handle this. Right? Okay. How can we handle this? Add throws declaration. After adding throws declaration, you are able to convince the compiler. Right? And again, okay, you are throwing the exception to the caller method. So do the same thing to the caller method also, right? And do the same thing to the next caller method also. While not found. At last, whenever the exception is happening, JVM is the last person who is going to handle that exception. So run this code. Everything is fine because you have given a file path that is present, right? Yes or no? This file path
Yes,
is
sir. Correct path.
correct path we have given, right? So whenever you are giving the current path and if there are no chances of getting an exception, definitely no issues. Let us say that if there is at least 1% chance of getting an exception, Instead of prop, I am using props. Okay, even though you are able to convince the compiler, at last the exception is going to be given to the JVM, right? When the JVM is catching the exception, which is the last person, which is the last caller, right? When the JVM itself is catching that exception, or when you are delegating the exception to the JVM, okay, you get the termination as abnormal. Hello, getting this? Yes,
Yes, sir,
no?
understood.
Yeah. Now you see,
Yes, sir.
okay, now let us see. You're not doing this. You're not doing this. And you are just using the throws keyword in the last caller method. Is it valid or invalid?
Invalid.
Invalid, correct. Why? Because, not because it is giving you the, where the exception is generating, on which line number the exception is generating? Tell me.
22.
22 is the line number, right? This is the risky code, right? So, who is having this risky code? Which method is having this risky code? Hard work method is having the risky code, right? Right? So, the risky code is part of hard work method. Hard work method is responsible to throw this exception to the caller method, but it is not throwing it. It's not throwing it. Do you think that except a compiler will not be convinced here? Compiler will not be convinced. Whenever an exception is happening, if you have a particular line number, if it is a part of particular method, the same method the exception needs to be handled. Right? You cannot keep the imagining that okay, the main method is the last caller method before JVM. If I use throws keyword, it can be handled because it is also a caller. Work is calling hard work is calling main method is calling work method is calling hard work method, but inside the method or throwing an exception. But to backtrack it, to backtrack it, this has to be thrown step by step. That's why it is valid. Whenever the exceptions are occurring in a particular method, it has to be handled then and there, either by using throws declaration or by using try and catch. Let me say I am throwing this exception to the work method. Now you see, the idea here is very simple. You might be writing a lot of Java methods, right? You're going to write a lot of Java methods. So in the company, let us say that in a particular method, let us say that the odd work method. Okay? In the odd work method, you just have to keep the working logics. Means you cannot use try catch block. For the better readability, you cannot use try catch block. Or else let us say that this odd work method should not be developed in such a way that you cannot use try catch block. But you are allowed to use throws declaration, but you cannot use try catch block. You want to keep the code clean. What you are going to do? You do what? Hard work method is defined in such a way that I cannot use try catch block to suppress the exception. You are throwing it to the caller method. You are saying that your caller method will take care of handling this exception. So, which is the caller method or work is the caller method, right? So when you just look at this, the moment you throw in this, so this is the this is the what? This is the risky code, right? Risky code. Now you can suppress the exception. Can you try? You can use catch. Okay. What else you can use? Interrupted file not found exception. File not found exception. You would say correct path. When you do this, even though you are deliberately giving the wrong path here, incorrect path here, okay, don't you think that it is getting suppressed just before giving it to the JVM? Everything is good here. Incorrect path. Do you think that program is getting terminated abnormally here? The normal
No,
termination.
sir.
Normal termination.
Normal time.
So the reason for using throws keyword is that there would be some requirements while developing a project where a particular method cannot handle the exceptions like try. You cannot use try or catch blocks. Okay, the block of the method should be clean and readable, or else you can also assume it like, okay, the particular method is not capable enough to handle that exception. You just give that to the caller method. Which method is calling this method which is throwing an exception? You will give the responsibility to that method. In this case, you're giving the responsibility. Let us say that, okay, your work method is also not willing to handle. What you can do, okay, you can just remove this, and you
In
can,
main method, we can
yes,
attach.
correct. You can suppress it in the main method. Okay, you can use try, you can use catch, you can say interrupted exception. You would say system dot out dot println and successfully. Why this is giving an exception?
So file not found exception.
Okay, file not found exception. File not found. Correct. Okay. Now the control is not going to the JVM, so you are suppressing it in the main method itself, because hard work method is not capable to handle this exception. So hard work method is delegating the responsibility to the work method. Work method is also like that one. So work method is delegating the responsibility to the what? To the caller method, to the main method. So main method is the last place where if you want to handle the exception gracefully, you can handle it in the main method. And you miss this opportunity, if you throw the exception to the caller, now the caller is JVM, right? When the control goes to the JVM, is an abnormal termination. You understand the purpose of throws keyword now? You use this very rarely. You just delegate it to the caller method if the particular method is not capable enough to handle that exception. Right? Can you give me a conclusion how to suppress an exception? First thing, by using try catch, yes or no? You can completely suppress an exception, right? You can completely contain an exception, right? By using try catch. What is the purpose of throws keyword? Just to convince the compiler, no? Convince the compiler for all the checked exception. Second thing is delegating the responsibility to the caller method. Okay, if the current method is not capable to handle, okay, the current method will delegate the responsibility to the caller method. Responsibility to the caller method. What is the third point that we have understood? The caller method. Right? Third point is you cannot use it for the unchecked exception. I mean, even though if you use it, no use, right? Because if you want to convince the compiler, use throws keyword. But any unchecked exception will not be checked by the compiler. No, you do not have to convince it, right? No use of using it for checked exception, unchecked exception. For arithmetic exception. Okay, do you understand the difference between try, catch, and close? Hello? Fine.
Yes, sir.
We will proceed with the next one. File new. Okay. Now you tell me the exception. There are three. Okay, case. If I have a class, the name of the class is test. My every class is going to have a constructor, so I am taking my constructor explicitly text constructor. The constructor is name of the constructor should be same as the class name. Next one is I have a method one. I have three things here. What are the three things that you notice here? You have a class, you have a constructor, you have a method, right? So in which areas I can use the throws keyword? In which areas I can use the throws keyword? So when I use the throws keyword in the constructor, okay, do you think that is it valid or invalid? Remember one thing, whenever
Invalid.
Okay, we will see all the cases. Throws exception. When used for class, throws exception. Now tell me one thing. First of all, we'll start from method. Can you call a method from another method?
Yes, sir.
So when there is a kind of calling one method from another method, okay, you have another method here. When there is a kind of calling, okay, you can call this method from here, and you can call it when there is a kind of communication. Okay, so you can use throws keyword. So this is completely valid. Okay, you are delegating the exception to the caller method. Valid, right? Likewise, even we can call a constructor from another constructor. Hello?
Yes, sir.
We can call a constructor, right? Example, think think like this. Let me say I have a constructor. Let me remove this. Let me say I have a constructor. Let me remove all this. I have a class A. Okay. So my class A is doing what? Let us say I have a constructor. Okay. So inside my class, I am using what? Inside my constructor, I am using print writer equal to print writer. What it's saying? Add throws declaration. Why it is saying? Because this line is part of a constructor. I agree that this line is part of a constructor, right? So when you just use the throws keyword here, you are delegating this exception to the caller constructor, not method. Caller constructor, right? Which is going to call this constructor whenever you are creating an object a obj equal to new a, right? Now you see at the time of object creation, okay, this is the caller. No? This constructor is callee, so this is the caller, right? Hello, you are calling this constructor using the new keyword a constructor. This is the caller.
Yes, sir.
Now this is delegating the responsibility to the caller constructor. When this is the caller constructor, this has to handle this, right? Okay, when I use throws keyword
Sure.
here,
It throws.
yeah. Now like the you have to handle this. Okay, this is part of which method? This is part of main method. This code is capable enough to generate the exception. So you're using the throws while not want exception. Or else, okay, whenever you're dealing with the constructor, you can use try block to suppress it then and there. Catch block, right? System.out.println exception and then exception handle, because why it is coming to the catch block, I have given the incorrect file path, right? So even in the constructors also you can use the throws keyword. That's my intention to say. An example for that, right? Second one is this is also valid. Okay, now you tell me, is there a way to use the throws keyword for the class? Can you call a class from another class?
Yes, sir.
Can we call again, if you want to do that call, we can call it, but see, cannot call the class directly, but you can create object for the classes. Sir, no, I can do this. Just obj equal to new test. So with this reference, I am able to call all the variables, properties, constructors. Yes or no? With this reference, I will be able to call mainly all the methods of test class, all the methods of all the variables of test class, and if I want, I also can call constructor, right? But is there a way to call the class separately? No, right?
No, sir. We can't.
We cannot call the class independently. Okay? We can utilize the methods and we can utilize the variables after creating an object. But classes cannot be called explicitly. So this is invalid. Now the conclusion is throws keyword can go along with the constructor. Throws keyword can go along with the method. Is there anything else that we can use throw? Nothing. These are the two things that we can use throw schema. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
1 minute. Okay. Now next thing. Now you tell me the answer. Okay, let us say that I have something like, you know, let me remove all this. Okay. Now we will try to combine the throw versus throw schema. Throw, throw, versus throw. We use these two combinations together. Let us say that I have a class called bank class. What is my class? My class is a bank class. So my bank class is going to, let us say that I have I am simply saying new throw bank invalid phone. So we have discussed about this throw keyword in the previous class, right? When I say if you want to throw any exception, there are two ways. I mean, you are doing this manually. You are doing this what?
Customized exception.
Correct. Customized exception. You're doing this again. You're doing this manually. And what is an advantage of using the throw keyword is you want to customize any exception. Some exceptions are not part of a built-in Java software. You have a lot of exception. You have a lot of built-in exceptions in Java. Okay, some exceptions are really not part of it, right? So bank is what? So can you agree one thing? Can you say runtime exception is a class? It's a class, right?
Yes, sir.
Arithmetic exception is a class, right? Exception is also a class. Throwable is also a class, right? If you want your own class to get the status of the exceptions or to act like these exceptions, okay, you want to keep this child as the child class to any of these classes. I can simply say extends runtime
Exception.
exception. Anything you can take. So when I say extends runtime exception, right? Now my bank class can be used along with the throw keyword. It is giving error. Throw new bank exception. Huh? Okay, so there is no constructor here. So I'm using only no constructor. So the constructor should be no. Okay. So getting an object for new bank. The moment you want this object to be used along with the throw keyword, the bank class should be what? The bank class should be part of the exception hierarchy. So what I'm doing, I'm just placing extending into runtime exception. Right? So runtime exception is a secure one or unsecured one? Can you tell me?
Unchecked.
Unchecked, okay. It cannot be checked by the compiler, right? Let me take a checked exception like what we can take. Exception we can take. Exception is checked or unchecked? Exception is partially checked.
Partial.
Partially checked. So since it is a partially checked, anyhow you are throwing an bank exception here. Okay. Now it is asking, compiler is checking this very clearly that the bank is of what? Partially checked type, because you are extending it to the exception class again, which is the partially checked exception. You want to handle this. So line number 22 is a risky code. Is a risky code that is potential enough to generate an exception. Are you handling this? You are not handling this. How can I handle this? Can I delegate the responsibility to the caller method by using throws keyword? I can do that. Now if I give this to the JVM and again abnormal technician, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
And if I want to
Yes, sir.
handle this gracefully, then I can do that also. So let me take the real-time example. Let us say that if Teacher balance equal to 1000. Teacher withdraw equal to 5000. I'm just keeping it very static. If I want to withdraw an amount, the amount should be greater than the available balance, isn't it? What if the condition is like this? If the balance amount is lesser than withdraw amount. Yeah, I should throw an exception, right? Insufficient balance exception. I'm creating my own exception. Okay. Insufficient balance exception. Okay, which is let me pass one message here. I will tell you about this. Okay. If the balance is okay, when this is the case, what I should do? I should throw an exception. Now you see, let me run this code. 1 minute. Any errors here? Okay. Inception balance exception. Let me run this code. Anyhow, I'm delegating the message to the caller method. Now, do you see that insufficient balance exception, insufficient balance? So there is a exception the description you are getting. Okay, the stack trace frame, the exception message, exception type. So, do you think that this inception balance exception is part of Java built-in exception or our own customized exception?
Customized exception.
Customized. So, in the project, you will be having a lot of requirement to generate your own customized exception with a customized message. A customized message. Right? So, this is one of the cases. The balance is this, okay, or else do the operation. Yeah. Successful. New balance equal to balance minus not order balance. Balance is plus balance. Let us say my balance is 10,000. You know what would be the output?
Exception, insufficient.
Right. No, sir.
5,000, right? 5,000 will be there now. Withdraw successful balance fail because now the if condition is not getting any chance now. Balance is 10,000 I said. Withdraw is 5,000, right? Only this happens when the balance is lesser than withdraw amount. Since this is getting bypassed, else condition will get a chance. This will get executed. This will get executed, and you get the actual balance after doing the mathematical operation, right? So in this case, for example, let me say 100. Now the exception will be generated. You are sending it to the caller method, which is what JVM is. Okay, instead of sending it to the caller method, is there any other way that I can handle this? Is in our case, the caller method is the main method itself. Let me change this method to bank method. Let me take another main method. So, calling the bank method. Now you see, now I am delegating the exception to which method? Caller method, no? Hello? Main method is a caller method, no? Instead of giving it to the JVM, I can suppress it here. If I want to keep the, if I do not want to terminate the flow abnormally, I have an option to suppress it there. I can use exception, or else I can use what, insufficient balance exception. Indeed, I can display a meaningful message. Not only sufficient. Now, are we good? Right? Because we are very good here. The termination is not abnormal. That it is getting paid gracefully. How it can be achieved? One somewhere in the caller, somewhere in the calling flow, right? Just before the main method, if you are handling the exception gracefully, okay, you have to pick a particular method where all the exceptions are getting handled, and if you do that, the exceptions will be handled gracefully. If you miss that, when the exception is going to the JVM, okay, gone case, abnormal termination. You need to understand that throws keyword is used to do what? It is just used to convince a compiler. Second one is, if your current method is not capable enough to handle the exception gracefully, it is going to delegate it to the caller method. Okay, what is the use of throw keyword? Throw keyword is used to generate the customized exception. Okay, when you say insufficient balance exception, make sure that you have a class for insufficient balance. Also make sure that it's extending to particular exception. Okay, also make sure that if you want to display meaningful message, place a constructor that is accepting a message and delegate that message to the exception. Okay, the message that you are passing will be coming in the description. Now, have you understood the difference between throw and throws? Can answer any
Yes, sir.
questions now?
Yes.
One more thing, one more last case study. Yeah? By this we can conclude. The last case study is like, now you have to tell me the difference. Let me say, let me remove all this not required. Not required, this is also not required. Okay, tell me the difference between these two. When I say throw new exception, why are we getting the error here?
Not handling the exception.
Because it should handle.
Why it should handle? You should
We are
say
getting an exception, right?
no,
Yeah.
correct. I agree your answers. You should say this line is generating a checked exception. Good answer. Are getting?
Yes, sir.
This is
To
generating
sup
checked exception. It needs to be handled. Okay. And what about this? Why now we are not supposed to handle this? Tell me.
Error is a checked class.
Error is a unchecked class. Only checked exception should be handled. Or you are telling the opposite. Only checked exceptions are supposed to be handled because to convince a compiler. You getting? Hello.
yes, sir.
Previous one
Yes,
is
sir.
exception. It is a partially checked exception. It needs to be handled by the it needs to be handled by the developer so that you can convince the compiler. How I can handle this? By adding throws keyword. Right? If not, you will get compile time error. Okay. Why you do not want to handle this? The moment I say error, so this is an interview question I am asking. Always I want to ask you. Why you are not supposed to handle this? Because not required. It is an unchecked exception. Compiler is not aware that this line is going to give an exception. Okay. Making sense? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Okay. Now you got everything. No? Now you answer. Have you got 100% or not? Tell me that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you should answer this. Huh? If you are getting, if you are saying 100%, you should answer this. Okay. Try. Let's see who is going to answer this. Okay. Hello. That's These are the 5 use cases. Let's see who is going to answer this. Now tell me, first one is valid or which one are valid here? So this is the case one. Valid or invalid?
Valid.
Okay. Case one is valid. What about case two? This case two.
Valid.
Good. What about case three? This is case three. Valid or invalid? Valid.
Sir.
Valid. What about case 4 and 5? Valid, huh? Everything is valid now. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Let me tell you,
Yes.
like you said, first one is completely valid, second one is valid, third one is invalid, fourth one is invalid, fifth one is valid. I will tell you why. So, first one you are dealing with what exception? Arithmetic exception. Okay? And no matter, okay, if the try code, if the try block is generating an arithmetic exception or not. In this case, is it generating an arithmetic exception? They simply allow, right? Hello? No matter
Yes,
whether the try block is generating the actual defined exception, the catch block or not, valid. Likewise, you say exception, no matter if the actual code is generating an exception or not, is valid. But the moment you start using interrupted exception is fully checked now. You remember? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Fully checked means definitely the compiler will look, is there any risky code that is actually generating this interrupted exception or not? Allow is not satisfied. You getting?
Yes, sir.
It will definitely check, is there any risky code that is available in the try block which is going to generate an interrupted exception or not. Only if that, in that case, it is valid. Now here it is generating only allow is not related to interrupt exception. That's why invalid. Likewise, file not found. File not found is what? Fully checked exception, no? Hello?
Yes, sir.
That's why it is also
Compiler is-
invalid. It is also invalid. What about error? Error is the what? It is unchecked exception, right? That's why it is valid. Are you getting? You want, you can try
Yes,
this.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now I would say that you got 100% out of this exception handling. You can answer any questions. That's one thing is you just if you do the revision later, you can answer any questions. If you want, I can go deep also, but no, it's not recommended. Why the strength is very less? Movie vibes, huh? With Kohli or War, huh? Anyone see movie?
No, sir. Yes, sir. Both are not good.
Not good, huh? I plan to see tomorrow. Let's see. They are saying that tickets are not available. I don't know about the tomorrow. I will try.
Average movies.
Both are average, huh? I
Yes.
thought someone said
Puri first half is better.
part two is good. They are saying. I'm not sure. Let us see. Okay. So one last thing. Okay. These things are fine. If you have time, just do some research for me. Okay. There is a concept called try with resources. Okay. Just try to understand this by yourself. It's also part of exception handling. So instead of using finally block, okay, this try with resources, it is just like you have a kind of a statement, a block like this. it is going to auto close the resource cleanup operations. You do not have to use the finally block. Okay, do this research. The second thing is the popular interview question you would face is difference between final keyword versus finally block versus finalize method. Okay. So finalize is a method. What is a finally? Finally is a block. What is a final? Final is a keyword. Okay, final keyword can be used. You know where to use final keywords, right? You can use it for variables so that the values cannot be changed. Na? You can use it for methods so that you can avoid.
Static values.
Correct. You can use it for methods so that you can avoid overriding. You can use it for classes so that you cannot have any subclasses. Final means you're placing an additional restriction for the variables, methods, and class. And for the variables, you cannot change its value. For the methods, you cannot, allow overriding. For classes, you can stop having the child classes. Extends keyword cannot be used. Finally block, right? Finally block, the concept involved exception handling. You can answer this very clearly, right? In the interview. Finally block means what? Finally block is used in the type catch hierarchy to do the resource close-up operations. It is a block. Remember this keyword, huh? This is just a block. Finally means block. Final means keyword. Understood? Right? And what about the finalize method? Finalize method. This method is part of object class. Finalize method is part of what class? This method is part of object class. When finally block is used to do the resource cleanup operations, the finalizer method is used to do what? It is used to do the resource cleanup operations with respect to method. I will tell you one simple example. When you have something, let us say when I was getting an object like a obj equal to okay, this object has an identity, na? This object has an identity, right? Likewise, when you create an object mu a without an identity, or else let us say that you have a reference a obj1 equal to null. A obj equal to null because you just have the reference, but you do not have any object. So this object is completely safe, but this object is not safe because it's not even object, right? You instead of doing that, I can do something. This object has a reference now, guys. A obj equal to a as a reference. So this is the reference. This is a reference variable. This is the type, and this is the object. After some time, you're doing what? You're doing like this. Obj equal to null yourself. Means you are literally killing the object. You're killing the object. Okay, when you're killing the object in your code, okay, garbage collector will come into the picture. What is it? GC. GC means again it is a Java topic, garbage collector topic. If I have time, I will discuss about this. But for now, just see. Garbage collector is going to do the resource kind of memory cleanup operations. Okay, for the garbage collector, okay, let us say that garbage collector is like a person. It is going to consume all the references which has no value.
Unused references.
Correct. Unused references. These are unused references. OBJ null was used earlier. Now it is an unused references. So this is a kind of hook to the garbage collector. Right. So this garbage collector is ready to clean this. Okay. But before deallocating memory for this, okay, it will allow this reference to do what? The cleanup operation associated with this object reference. Means this OBJ might be linked to many other operations or many other methods or many other variables. Okay, all the operations needs to be completed. Then the garbage collector is going to do the memory deallocation, right? To complete all these operations, it will call the finalize method. You say, sir, I am not understanding this. Very simple. Finalize method is one of the method in the object class. First answer. Finalize method is one of the method in the object class. When there is any reference, when there is any references which has no value or which is nullified, that reference will be consumed by the garbage collector. But before consumed by the garbage collector, the reference, the actions associated with that reference, okay, will be cleaned up by the finalized method. Will be closed by the finalized method. So finalized method is part of object class. So you will get the better picture once I don't know if I can take that. But you can check in the YouTube or in the ChatGPT and the Google about what is the finalized method. You will get some picture. So I'm just giving a demonstration here to understand the difference between these three. If you want to add up more points, you can add. But if you tell these 2 points, that would be more than enough. Okay. So what are the 2 things that you have to do? Try to understand what is private resources. It's going to take only 5 minutes, not more than that. And try to understand about this finalized method. By these 2, we can conclude the exceptionality. Okay, tomorrow we will try to understand about the serialization in Java. Serialization.